Welcome back to Heart of Glass, the podcast, the show that takes a deeper, more in-depth look at the awesome humans that make up the heartbeat of the Glass City. My name is Ashley Cohn, and I'm so glad that you've chosen to join us once again, either listening or watching. We are filming on site at Toledo Spirits, and if you haven't had a chance to try their Heart of Glass vodka yet, make sure you do that. It is absolutely delicious, as well as they've released their summer menus, so make sure to stop out and check that out. Today's guest is a self-described lifelong nonprofit guy that has lived in the Glass City area since the late 90s. The former executive director of Nature's Nursery, he is currently the director of Toledo Animal Rescue, helping to care for and provide shelter for homeless and abandoned dogs and cats. He's lived an interesting life that has taken him all over the country, and I'm looking forward to talking with him about all things animals, music, and mental health. So Glass City humans, I give you Mr. Steve Kiessling. How you doing, Steve?
Good. Actually, I couldn't write that better myself. I sound like awesome.
Well, I mean, you are. You are.
That's
and
sweet. I am
and you're
not.
an animal guy, so
True.
I mean, right there, that connects with me. So
Yeah, and that's how you and I originally met.
That is how we originally
Well, sort
met.
of. But it was an animal connection because it was through Dr. Bart.
I was gonna say we have Dr. Bart to thank for that,
And
actually.
you was what, the Pride brunch crawl?
Yes, that's
and you
right.
were playing out front of,
Yeah.
what is it?
George's.
George's.
Yeah.
And so he introduced us and,
Yeah, and we've stayed connected ever since. And when you were at Nature's Nursery, that became the event that I like to play for fundraisers. And now with you moving to Toledo Animal Rescue,
I know.
I'm super pumped to do that
and
too.
if people don't know, one of Ashley's favorite animals is the fox.
It is. I love foxes so much. And so I was so excited when you gave me that behind the scenes tour at
I know.
Nature's Nursery. That was great. So we always like to start by kind of laying the framework for how you got to where you are now and the awesome person that you are now. So let's travel back in time to the 70s. Where,
when I was born.
Yes.
I'm old.
Yes. You're not that old, Steve. Come on.
51. Some
You
days
feel
I
old?
feel like I'm 12.
Okay. I get that.
And depending on how many days before or after I see my chiropractor,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm about 90.
I can understand that, most definitely.
So
Well, so you grew up in a Philly suburb, right? In
Yeah.
New Jersey? Okay.
I grew up in a town called Medford, New Jersey.
Nice.
A lot of people know Cherry Hill. It's like 20 minutes from Philly.
Okay.
But yeah, I grew up there.
Pretty small town, right?
Nah, probably, I would say probably comparable to Perrysburg in
Okay.
population. Geography a bit bigger. It's like right on the edge of the Pine Barrens.
Ooh.
And it's grown exponentially since I've been there. A lot of places that I used to go and get in trouble in the woods are
Yeah.
now McMansions and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great town, lots of lakes. I grew up near several of them. So I did a lot of fishing, and
Nice.
I was always, kid in the 70s and early 80s, we were outside,
Right.
snow day.
So the porch
you're
lights
gone.
came on.
Exactly, until
Yeah.
you got yelled at.
Right. So it sounds like you had a pretty idyllic childhood that essentially set you up for success, especially with your athletic endeavors, and that eventually led you to the University of Virginia,
Yep.
right? Yeah, okay. So looking at that, let's talk nature and nurture for a second. So once again, sounds like you had a pretty good childhood overall and set you up for success. But,
Sure, we'll go.
okay.
We'll go there. I'm afraid my dad might see this, but okay.
Yeah.
I was a child of divorce. My parents divorced when I was, I think, in junior high.
Okay.
They were pretty miserable to each other for a long time. I think they got together when they were 19.
Wow, so they were young then.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so, no. Yes and no. The answer is yes and no. I grew up pretty much with a silver spoon. My father was a dentist, retired, of course, now, and so I didn't want for anything.
Sure.
Which kind of molded me to be kind of a dick.
Fair enough. I love the honesty. Very self-aware.
It's been many, many years,
Sure.
and a phenomenal wife that has kind of forced me to be a little bit self-aware. But I was kind of a dick because I didn't want for anything, and so I kind of took what I was given completely for granted.
Okay.
We went to ski trips to Colorado, and I always got the new skis each year, and you want the really expensive bike, boom, you've got it. And I remember this dating myself. One of the things is Atari.
Yes, okay.
And so I badgered my dad to the point of him just getting pissed off and buying it to buy Asteroids. It just came out. Well, this is like late 70s, early 80s. It was like $100 then. And he was like, I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
So no, I don't know what the answer to the question is, but.
That's okay. I feel like when you're raised in that environment, I wasn't raised that way, but I can imagine that when you're in it, it's kind of easy to maybe not appreciate it in the moment. That's something that for a lot of people has to wait and happen once you've grown up and gained a little bit more life experience.
Yeah, without a doubt, I did not appreciate it. What I did know growing up was that I couldn't stand the Northeast.
Really?
Like,
okay.
I knew from early on that like as soon as I got out of high school, I'm gone. Whether it's going to college and then out, or I just knew I was gone. It just was like the black sheep. Didn't really start jiving with the people I was hanging with. Just wanted to run. Just was like gone. And I did. And that's kind of what ended up leading me here 30 years later.
Did you always, when you were growing up, did you always kind of feel like a black sheep, or?
No, I was a troublemaker, you know? I was like again, dating myself, like Eddie Haskell, right?
I don't know who that is.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
Okay, for you young people watching this, I'm looking at you. Back in the day, there was a show called Leave It to Beaver.
Oh yeah, okay, all right.
And there was the childhood friend, Eddie Haskell.
Okay.
Who was the one who was always getting the boys in trouble, but then he would come over and like, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Cleaver, good to see you.
Oh, okay.
Ma, you look lovely today. Oh, this is a lovely dinner we're having. Oh, I'll just have a little bit. Oh, thank you so much. And then get outside and like, let's go break some fucking windows, you know?
So you were slick.
So no, I wasn't slick. I was just that kind of kid.
Sure.
And I'm sure they saw through it to some degree. But yeah, my home life, I didn't spend a lot of time at home.
Okay.
My dad was always working, or especially since past junior high, he lived another part of town. My mom owned a liquor store, and she was working constantly. So I actually probably grew up in an Episcopal reverend's house.
Wow.
One of my best friends, Joe Moore. So yeah, I was raised by Father and Mrs. Moore. A lot of it. Spent a lot of time there.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh no.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that had any kind of a profound impact on helping to shape who you are today? No?
I don't know. I'd have to do some reflection.
Really deep. I totally understand.
No,
that.
it got me out of a lot of trouble though.
That's good.
And it, gave me a safe place to land.
Very cool.
Could make me cry.
I mean, I'm not trying to, but if that happens, that's okay.
I know.
You're in a good place to do that.
Yeah. So
you left and went to University of Virginia?
Yes. I knew it. I mean, it was growing up, it was just a foregone conclusion that I was going to college.
Okay.
There wasn't any gap year or community college. Community college is a 4-letter word, The dumb kids went to community college.
Oh, okay.
Which is absolutely ludicrous.
Right.
So I knew I was going to college. Where I was going to college, I didn't know. I applied to everything from Hawaii to Yale.
Okay. So the full gamut then.
And because I was a pretty good student. I wasn't great, but I was pretty good.
Okay.
I was, top 10% in my class, and I had some classes that I was in that were with the super smart people, and some of the jock classes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I knew I was going to college. I wasn't sure where. I also knew I was going to pursue athletics. I was a javelin thrower, which they don't have in Ohio in high school. I think it's only in like 12 states.
Wow, okay.
And I started that because a gym class. I could throw really hard. And the gym teacher brought in the track coach and said, throw something. I was throwing like a basketball against the wall. And this big dude, Ernie, huge dude, punched me in the chest. He's like, you're throwing javelin, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, all right, I'm not doing anything. It's spring, I wasn't doing anything. So yeah, I did it. And my high school had a long line of really good javelin throwers in the state.
Okay.
So I followed some really good people. But it helped me get into college. I mean, it helped me get into University of Virginia, which is no small feat out of state. I mean, it's one of the best universities in the country, academically.
Okay.
And I was a good student, but it kind of pushed me over the edge. I wasn't good enough student and not a good enough javelin thrower to get into Yale, but I got into University of Virginia and it was there.
Okay. So you said you felt like, you mentioned in your story that you felt like you wasted a great opportunity in some ways while you were there. Why did you feel like that?
Oh man, I drank a lot.
Okay.
I drank way too much. Growing up in a liquor store, I knew more about wine at 17 than I do now.
Wow.
By helping stock and tasting it and learning from the reps. And, you know, I would walk in my mom's liquor store and walk out the back door with a case of beer, like all the time. Like I was the guy. And being kind of a meathead, it was like, I'm going to be the guy. And so I drank way too much in high school and I drank way too much in college. And I missed some amazing stuff. I mean, the University of Virginia in Charlottesville is gorgeous. It's by the Blue Ridge Parkway. It's the
Nice.
Appalachian Trail is over that way. There's mountains and hiking and rivers and streams, and I did none of it. If I was not practicing, I might have been going to class, but usually I was just drinking.
So you feel
So
like
I
you
missed a
missed out on,
ton.
okay.
Oh yeah,
That makes
I was
sense.
a total frat boy.
So interesting.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk a little bit more about that whole concept of that part of who you were, because who you are now is very different, and I wanna kind of look at that as we go through this today.
I kind of should have wished I had sent you a picture of who I look like.
Really? Who did you look like?
Oh, dude, I was a blonde beach bum. I had bleach blonde hair,
Wow.
natural.
Wow.
Yeah, now everybody, I don't have any. Yeah. Oh no, I don't look anything.
That's really interesting.
Like
No, you.
I did. I was a lifeguard at the beach, so I
Wow.
sat there on the beach stand and blew my whistle at people and was all tan and all that stuff. Totally weird.
Interesting. So one of the very interesting things that you mentioned was the connection with Dave Matthews and the fact that you were seeing him, you said almost every Tuesday?
Yeah,
for a while there?
it got to the point where in college he would play at this bar called Tracks.
Yeah.
More of a concert venue than a bar, but it had.
Okay.
And it was like, oh man, I don't want to go see Dave again. It's like, well, Tuesday night, let's just go. Like we would do 2 for wings and then go,
Nice.
2 for Tuesday wings and then go see Dave and just sit in the back and hang out, and because it was $5.
Wow, that's so, okay, so you're a person who music is incredibly important for you.
It has become.
Yeah. Did you recognize the significance of that at the time that you were essentially watching a very big national act basically be birthed at that time?
Yeah, you would think I would. You're asking these questions as if I was really self-aware.
Yeah,
wasn't
not so much at that time? Okay.
I'm barely self-aware now, and that's the honest truth.
I love it.
No, I remember seeing Dave there. I remember seeing like Blues Travelers, which they're playing July 3rd up at Pine Knob.
Very cool.
Which is fun. I'm not going, but I remember seeing like freaking Fishbone, with ska, and just all sorts of random bands at this place. We had great bands playing in fraternity houses and things. So I mean, I like music. My mom always had. I have all my mom's albums, so she was always playing music, and
Nice.
the classic stuff. Everything from Karen Carpenter to John Denver, and but that era, the '70s singer-songwriter type stuff. So I love all that. But I never, just till recently, honestly, did I realize that music was something that we always have at my house. It's always
Yeah.
on. And I realized that when I went and visited my dad. He lives down in the Florida Keys, which is great. I went fishing with him for a week. But after 4 or 5 days there, I realized he and Peg, his wife, no music playing and no pets. And I'm like, man,
Interesting.
I got home and there's music playing, and obviously I have a bajillion pets. I mean,
Right.
you've met most of them. And so I realized it is kind of important. You always kind of have to have it in the background or in the foreground. So yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about your awesome wife. Krista's amazing.
She's a show in and of herself.
Yeah, she's incredible, and I love. You can sense your love for her just in how you wrote out your story for me. That a very large chunk of your story includes her, and so I wanna dig into that a little bit. So
Okay.
the two of you have an incredible, very well traveled love story.
Sure.
Yeah.
Love story.
Yeah.
It's a story.
It's a story, but ultimately resulting in love.
Absolutely.
And I think that the two of you are an excellent example of what it means to really fight for your relationship.
Oh, we work hard. We've worked hard since the get-go. When we met in Wyoming. So, kind of backtrack.
Yeah, please do.
So I went to school in Virginia. Was going to move to Colorado. Came home to New Jersey. Was going to move to Colorado. Had a job at a grocery store of a friend of my mom's. And a buddy of mine called me up and said, hey, I got a job in Jackson Hole. Why don't you come here instead? And that was like a week before I was leaving. So just changed my travel route. Me and my dog and my Jeep went from New Jersey to Jackson Hole. Drove 48 hours behind the wheel for 36 of it.
That's a lot of driving.
I remember driving on the turnpike at like 4 a.m. And I'm like, yeah, Toledo, Max Klinger, MASH, cool. Never thought of it again. So I'm a huge MASH fan. And so got there, and several weeks in, I met Krista. She had just got done working her second summer at Yellowstone.
Okay.
And her and her friend, her bestie Lainey, who's still her bestie, were living in the elk refuge in her VW camper.
I love how you describe the two of you, because I'm picturing this. You two are very clearly, at that time, were such polar opposites.
Oh, dude, I was a frat boy. I didn't wear jeans.
Wow.
Like, I didn't do any of that stuff. And she was just a freaking hippie that was doing all this stuff and being a hippie. And we ended up meeting at a bar at the restaurant. The place we worked at was Snow King, which is a ski resort in town in Jackson Hole.
Okay.
And so we met, and it was me and my buddy Brett, and her and Lainey, and we were sitting there drinking, and then honestly, Brett turned and threw up kind of on Lainey, and Krista and I took off, and it was kind of the end of it.
Wow.
And so we were there for a while, and again, we both ran from home. She's from here, hence me being here. She grew up in Perrysburg.
Oh, okay.
But she was running from what she was running from, and I was running from what I was running from. So we were both really messed up.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of grew up together and got a little less messed up. I know she's going to watch this, so yes, honey, you are college material. I told her she wasn't college material back then.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, she doesn't let me live it down. Now she has a master's degree, has been at Owens for like 20 years. And I carry a dictionary around with her a lot of the time.
Wow.
Because she talks about shit that...
Does she?
Yeah.
She strikes me as a very intelligent person.
Super.
Yeah.
Super intelligent, super passionate, super in all sorts of ways.
So let's talk about the Avett Brothers for a minute.
Please.
Because outside of your story, you texted me separately and you said it was definitely something that you wanted to talk about because the band has saved you and your marriage multiple times.
It seems that the band comes around this area when we need it most. Whether we're just disconnected or the world and life are just really taking a big crap and we get disconnected.
Okay.
And so it's an immediate connection back.
What is it about the Avett
It's just
Brothers?
the music.
Okay.
The music speaks to us both. She started seeing them, 11, maybe 10 or 11 years ago, maybe more.
Wow.
They played a free concert up in Detroit. And so she went up there. She went up there with our friend Elliot. And then she started listening to, they had a couple, 3 albums out then. She started listening to them, and then I started listening to them, like, yeah, they're really good. And then, saw them live. Their live show's ridiculous. It's just all energy and passion.
I can imagine, because you can hear the energy in their voices and their playing when you just listen to them streaming.
And so it's just a band that has always just shown up when we needed them.
That's really awesome.
And there's actually a local connection.
Really?
Their sound guy, Justin, is a Glanville.
Oh.
Jerry Glanville, the football coach Glanville, is his dad. Well, Glanvilles are from Perrysburg.
Interesting.
So when we go to shows, we actually go and hang out with Glanvilles every once in a while. Krista has brought bags of homemade cookies to the band to give to Justin, and she just saw them in Cleveland.
That's awesome.
And so she's hanging out with all the Glanvilles and Justin are in and around the sound area. And he comes up and gives her a hug, and he's like, "Where are my cookies?" And she's like, "I was told not to bring any more." He's like, "Oh, no. Keep bringing the cookies." But they're family. They're very family oriented. Outside of the concert, musician world, they tend to live kind of a normal-ish life in the Carolinas.
Okay.
And their music, I think, is really diverse.
It is very diverse.
And so, yeah. So I'm getting to see them tomorrow night, and I'm stoked.
That's awesome.
I know.
That's really awesome.
And we've been to shows where we are, sitting in nosebleeds. Also, we've been to shows where, like, the first people in, literally, like, the first two people.
Oh, that's the
We're
best.
doing the little kid run walk. And that was a show that Scott hugged us, one of the lead singers.
That's awesome.
Dude, he smelled so good.
Did he?
He's kind of short.
Is he?
But, like, he hugged us and was, like, genuine, like, held on, and, like,
Well,
it just felt good.
sometimes short people who smell good give the best hugs. That's all I'm saying.
You're not that short.
I mean, I'm 5'3". That's
I could have
pretty
said
short.
you don't smell that good.
Oh,
No,
well,
I'm
okay.
kidding.
Well,
I'm kidding.
fair enough.
So yeah, honestly, the band has really just kind of shown up when we needed to connect again a lot of the time.
That's awesome.
And the music speaks to us, so it's
Very
a lot
cool.
of fun.
So another thing that really stood out to me in your story was you said that at one point you were a self-proclaimed homophobe. That is so hard for me to picture.
Thank you.
Because
Thank you for that.
Seriously, because when I read that, I actually kind of chuckled because the person that I know now of you is the most open-minded, loving person ever, especially when it comes to
trying.
matters of people in general.
I try. I don't always succeed, but I try. Yes, I mean, growing up, I grew up in a suburb of Philadelphia, in a very closed-minded community. It was really white. It was really a bunch of breeders. And so that's what I kind of grew up with. Now, the racist part, I was really never much.
Okay.
Growing up in athletics, specifically track, and competing with and against people of all races, but predominantly folks who were black. There's white folks and there's black people. There wasn't really many in between where I grew up with. And so that was never a big issue. But yeah, in high school and even into college, pretty homophobic because I just didn't know any. I didn't know any gay people. And the ones that, if I don't hang out with people I grew up with anymore, but that's still their mentality.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, I grew up with this. And so even in college it was still the same. But when my first real introduction to being around mostly gay men was this guy, boy, I can't remember his name. It'll come to me. Who worked at the place we worked at in Wyoming.
Yeah.
Fine. But then we moved to Key West from there. Key West in the mid-'90s is, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like that as much now.
Right.
But it was, it was the LGBTQ community before anything else was the LGBTQ community plus. And so we lived in a little place and was actually like a cistern, like a water cistern, like literally had to walk up and like that's where our bedroom was.
Yeah.
There was our place, there was an empty lot, and then there was the men's guest house. It's called La Ti Da. And I had a dog. And so I would walk my dog into because there's no space in Key West. So I walked my dog in the empty lot, and sometimes I'd walk without my shirt on. Oh, dude, I was getting abused.
Wow.
Like catcalls and so much inappropriate things towards me. I'm like, that's kind of how women feel like all the time. And then there was just a lot of characters that I met and that I hung out with and was basically able to just honestly sit around, drink, and hang out with them and ask, like, how, why? I don't get it.
Sure.
And they were cool about it. And so, more and more time went by that it just didn't freaking matter.
I think beyond the obvious reasons that I love this part of your story, I think it so much speaks to who you are as a person in that you didn't just settle for, well, this is how I feel and I refuse to budge on it. You were willing to ask questions and ask information so that you could gain a greater understanding.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not stupid. I left where I grew up because it was so, compartmentalized and closed-minded that was going to places to try to new experiences, and you know, I mean, what a better way to open up your horizons than hanging out with a bunch of wackos in Key West.
I love it.
And so, yeah, that was kind of, but I was, yeah, pretty bad. I mean, not like a go out of my way to go gay bash people.
Well, sure.
But it sounds like
but you still recognize that at that point you weren't as evolved as you could have been, and so moving on from there. See, I love that though. That is self-awareness.
I'm reminded a lot that I've got work to do. And that's not just from Krista, that's from my really smart kids.
Nice.
You know, my girls do not give me any quarter. If I say something stupid, even though my heart might be in the right spot and I'm really asking, oh man, they let me have it.
Do they?
Oh yeah.
Sounds like you got a couple great daughters.
Totally do. They're rock stars.
That's awesome. So let's just take a moment and let you brag about your daughters. Tell me about them.
Okay. So there's Mina, who's 20, who is just about to start her junior year at OU. And then there's Sage, who's 17, who's about to start her senior year at Toledo School for the Arts.
Awesome.
So they're both TSA students or graduates. Really smart, really independent. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. They're good kids. They have a lot of interests. They want to learn. Animal lovers, which is, you know,
that fits.
is all of that. They love music too. And the cool thing is now they're getting older. They're spending a lot more time with each other and not in a shitty sibling.
Sure.
And they still do that.
Sure.
When they get to spend too much time with each other. But yeah, I think they both really, you know, they get it, and they both are growing up in a shitty time.
Yeah, it's not a great time.
Mina missed her senior year of high school because of COVID. She missed her first year of college because of COVID. You know, Sage is more of an introvert. She's more of a visual artist and an introvert. So, but distance learning was really difficult for her because she still likes the interaction.
Sure.
And, you know, it's across the board, I think at school, she is super well liked because she's funny and she's kind and she's considerate. So she needed that. So that was really hard for her. So yeah, they're growing up. You know, Mina specifically, Krista was pregnant with Mina during 9/11.
Wow.
So her life has been sandwiched. It's a big crap sandwich. And the kids these days are like, you know, they don't have tornado drills. They have active shooter drills.
Right.
They, you know, up from 9/11 till these assholes with Roe versus Wade.
Yep.
You know, my 17-year-old's like, great. I have no control over my body right now.
I know. Even thinking about when I graduated, because I'm in the middle between you and your girls, even thinking about when I graduated back in early 2000s, it was very different. It was a different time.
Yeah. It's, you know, I'm scared for them all the time.
I bet. That has to be really scary as a parent in a variety of ways. I mean, looking at COVID specifically, that has to take a toll on just natural development when you're in school and being cut off in that way. And then you couple in, I mean, those of us who are adults are having a hard enough time wrapping our heads around it, failing to be able to wrap our heads around a lot of the current events. So thinking about youth, I mean, it's a tough time, because how, one, do you explain that in a way that they can fully understand, but two, that their own brains and hearts can fully comprehend and try to make sense of those things.
I don't know if I could do it. I mean, I can barely, you know, do it some days. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds like they're both wonderful and that they help keep you on your toes.
They are, and they're fun.
That's awesome.
They're smart. They're funny. Yeah, it's you know, having kids, each like stage is cool. But like the little baby stage was probably my least favorite, just because.
Really?
Because they're tiny and they're scary and
they're scary.
They can't.
Why are they scary?
Because they can't tell you what's wrong.
That is scary, actually.
And
I didn't think about that.
They can't tell you what they like and dislike, and then, you know, then they start exploring and they get a little funnier and start doing things. And now, you know, I like hanging out with my kids, I like having conversations with them.
That's awesome. That's very cool. So let's talk about nonprofits. All right. because you are the definition of
might
a
need another one of
non-profit
these.
guy, right? Okay, so you've worked for several nonprofits in the area over the course of several years. Yes, so many. When I looked at the list, I didn't realize that you'd worked for as many as you have.
There's still a couple I didn't even put on there, I don't think.
Okay.
So yeah, nonprofit guy.
Yeah.
Totally accidental.
Really? Okay. How so? How was that accidental?
So when I moved here, doing a bunch of different jobs, weird stuff, and I started as a volunteer track coach at the University of Toledo, coaching the throwers, right my bread and butter.
Absolutely.
And I was also a personal trainer. And so I was doing all this stuff, and then I got to be a part-time track coach, and I thought that was what I wanted to do. Thought I wanted to be a coach and get into that. That was like part of my undergraduate was biomechanics and kinesiology and physiology and all the stuff that goes around with training and things. And then I realized that honestly, as a white male, I was at a massive disadvantage to getting decent coaching jobs, which is fine.
Yeah.
I'm paying for it. Okay, I don't mind. And I also realized I wasn't stoked about being away from every weekend, basically from the first of the year till like July.
I can understand that,
Because that's what you do. You're doing indoor track, you're doing outdoor track.
Sure.
And so I was working as a trainer, and I stopped doing track. And I'm like, well, I'm also going to get my master's. So I got a master's, and throughout the process, I was looking for a job, and there was a job for a program called Mountain Mentors. Really small program, started by Reverend Mills, who is what is he? Methodist minister.
Okay.
So he started his program, and when I was doing it, we paired juvenile felons with adult mentors. Wow. And the first thing we would do would take them to a camp up in northern New Hampshire and take them on a 5-day backpacking trip, carrying all your crap on your back.
I bet that's a huge wake-up call.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I applied for the job, and I got the job because Krista and I, after we lived in Key West, did a stint in New Jersey because I wanted to go to cooking school. Ended up not doing that. Vegetarian cooking school, as a matter of fact.
Very cool.
Another story in and of itself. But we didn't do that, and we were going to move back out west. And a buddy of Krista's, Kenny, we went and visited him in New Hampshire. He's like, you should try this place, North Conway. And we're like, okay. So we lived there for a while.
Okay.
Fast forward. So I knew the area. I hiked a lot of the trails. I knew the people. I knew stuff. So I got this job. And so I lived in a tent for about 2 months. And so I would have a trip for a week, and then an off week, and then a trip for a week, and have basically like 4 or 5 trips with weeks in between. And so I lived in a platform tent at a camp with no electricity and no running water. And
it's roughing it for sure.
It was fun.
That's awesome.
I was there most of the time by myself. The good thing is on the off weeks, I still knew people in the area, so I could couch surf and hang out.
Look at this service. Tiernan Rice, everyone, our videographer and co-producer. Thank you so much.
The man, the myth, the legend.
For real.
By the way, these aren't strong. They're just delicious.
They are delicious. They are delicious.
Heart of
glass vodka, everyone. Heart of glass.
And so I got the job. So yeah, that's how I started my nonprofit career.
Wow.
And I just jumped from place to place for one reason. Some of it was trying to climb, to get into more and more.
Sure.
And some of it was I made mistakes and lost jobs and got new ones.
Right.
And so yeah, I've been doing it for a long time.
So most recently, currently, you are the director of Toledo Animal Rescue. So let me ask you this. How does it feel to be instrumental in giving these dogs and cats a better life and watching the connections that are made through all of that?
I think instrumental might be a stretch because it's not me.
I love you so much because I'm 100% not surprised to hear you say that.
But here's the thing. A lot of the times I thought it was me. And a lot of times I lost jobs because I thought it was me.
Okay.
So I realized that it's not me. It's like everybody.
Sure.
From the board on down to our volunteers.
But you're still an important part of it.
Oh yeah. I help keep the lights on and keep people paid and buy stuff and
Absolutely.
So yeah, we've done a really good job. I've been there just about 2 years and change. 2 years, 2 months, something like that. And when I got there, so I applied for the job, and during COVID, of course.
So I was going to say, you started kind of in the height of
April,
COVID.
like the first week of April. And so I was interviewing in March of COVID, and asking around. We fostered a lot of kittens. Krista specifically fostered a lot of kittens.
She's a great kitten foster mom. I got to watch it. She's, man, like the epitome of what you would want.
She's really good.
Yes.
And so we were doing that with Humane Society. So Krista had a lot of connections, and we were asking around, and my place was. The word on the street was there was a bunch of old ladies hoarding animals. So, and that hasn't been history, because the place has been around for 95 years. So I got in, and let's just say the only person left is Michaela, who you've met.
Yeah.
She's been there about 4 years. She's kind of my right-hand person, and she's the only one left when I started.
Wow.
Purposefully. And so we went from them doing around 100 adoptions a year for many years to last year we did 367.
That's a significant jump.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it wasn't hard. It was a lot of not saying no, and a lot of being understanding. We made a ton of changes there. So anybody who's watching this who might know who we were 5 years ago, 4 years ago, we're not the same place. We're better.
I love it.
But just a lot of it was common sense. It was giving cats and dogs toys and treats and soft places to sleep, and all things we take for granted with our critters.
Yeah.
In the shelter, in a lot of shelter environments, it's not like that. And ours, for some reason, wasn't like that, even though we could be. Super simple. We had all the stuff. They just weren't doing it.
Okay.
And so animals weren't getting adopted. There was one cat there for, I just looked, 1,200 days.
Wow, that's a long time.
There was a dog there for 600 plus days. And so, yeah, sad.
It's really sad as a pet parent thinking about that. That's really heartbreaking. Yeah. Even knowing they're obviously in a very loving environment and being very well taken care of.
It wasn't super loving.
Not at that time.
No, it was maintaining.
Okay.
And it wasn't big enough that it needed to maintain. It's not like it was LC4.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're just busting at the seams and are doing everything they can just to keep these animals alive.
Yeah.
And adopted. Enrichment, they do their best. Right. We actually just picked up a dog from LC4 today.
Did you?
We're gonna do some transfers. So we're gonna have one space specifically for an LC4 dog. So when that dog gets adopted, we'll grab another one.
That's awesome. So working in the rescue situation, I'm sure you've had some pretty significant and outstanding adoption stories. So can you share one of your favorite adoption stories?
Okay, so one of my favorite adoption stories was a dog that had been there for like 600 days, Maddie. Her name was Muddy. We rebranded her, got her some new pictures and a new description, and named her Maddie. And so she'd been there for over 6 days, and this woman came in, and Maddie was super sweet. She was a big something or other. And this lady came in and just absolutely fell in love with her. But some of the weird things is when we had to carry the dog into the car because she'd never been in a car. 2 years.
Oh, wow.
2 years hadn't been in a car.
Wow.
And when she got her to her house, she had a pet porch with steps. Dog didn't know steps. Right? You think stuff we take for granted.
Yeah.
2 years in a one level. And so this lady, I wish I remember her name, took Maddie home and had given us periodic updates, hasn't in a minute, but absolutely fell in love with this unadoptable dog.
I love that.
Yeah, and so that was a really good one. That was like one of my first real, we're not going to hoard animals, we're getting them out the door and we're going to get them to people who are going to love them. Most recent, well, there's two most recent. The story of Faith, our blind dachshund.
Oh my gosh, yes, please talk about Faith.
So she came in, trying to make a long story not so long. She came in the winter, some kids found her, it was snowing, and her eyes were all jacked up. We had to have one eye removed and had to fix the other eye, and she was with us for like 8 months. 7 months, and now she lives above the original sub shop with Mo.
I love that so much. What a great story.
She calls her something else. I don't remember what she calls her, fish stick or something. She still calls her Faith, but
yeah.
But because of Faith, we started a Faith Fund because we raised a bunch of money to pay for her surgeries, and we had so much extra raised that we can use it for other animals. So very cool. And she's doing great. She, obviously, Mo's wonderful, and the original sub shop. Like, I almost stopped on the way here just to get something because it's.
I think I told you I went there for the first time the other day, and I was like sorely disappointed that it's taken me up until now to try it because it's so amazing and it's been around for a long time.
Well, Mo joked that she, the curry chicken salad, that's all I ever ordered.
Okay.
I have no idea how good everything else is.
But that must be very good.
And she jokes that she bought a recipe and it came with a restaurant.
That's funny.
And of course it's got Frida Kahlo on the wall too.
Right.
So that was Faith, amazing, love one, love that one. And then there's a new one, Mangy Moose, who was about 6 weeks ago thrown over our back fence.
You're kidding.
No, a little rat.
Does that happen a lot?
More times than you think.
That's really sad.
Yeah, left at the gate, thrown over the fence. But Mangy Moose, this little dude, all jacked up.
Yeah.
He had mange, hence the name. Some skin infection. We did blood work. He had kidney failure. He didn't eat. All these things, and he is just. We've got him squared away. We actually just got his blood work back today, and he's like ready to go.
That's awesome.
He's already adopted. He hangs out. I call him Duper because he just walks around. Doop 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 doop. That's what he does, and he just runs the place. So he lives in my office.
I love it.
And just does his thing. But went from this dog who had absolutely no hope, getting tossed over a fence, to about to go home to a family with 2 little kids who are going to adore him. And he's the coolest little shit you'd ever want to meet. He's super cool.
I love it.
Like, if I didn't have my dog Frida, I would definitely.
You would totally take him.
Yeah, but I'm a one dog household.
That's fair. So, what would you say encompass the characteristics of a good pet parent, a good prospective adoptive pet parent? What do you guys look for?
If you have current pets, that you're taking care of them.
That makes sense.
I mean, people want animals and animals and animals, but then they get to a point where they can't take care of them, or they don't take care of them. So you're making sure you're taking care of your current pets.
Sure.
I don't know. It's a lot of it is just a feel. For when we meet people, you can just tell.
Do you almost get like a gut feeling out? Because I would imagine that you've really formulated some really good intuition over time.
Our whole crew has, and I don't do a lot of adoption visits. I'm sitting in front of a computer, doing stupid stuff.
Sure.
And so, but they've all developed their own kind of instinct, and it's like, what do you think of this person? And they're like, I don't know, or no, she's great, or he's great, or whatever they decide. And I trust them enough that if they say, hey, it's a no-go, it's a no-go. Sorry. You can be pissed off as all you want that we're not going to get you an animal. But if the person who did the visit says you're out,
not so much.
You're out. So don't take it, get your shit together.
That makes sense.
And so, so I don't really, honestly, I don't think there's one criteria.
Okay.
Because some people will do great with just one animal.
Yeah.
And some people need
the multiples.
Multiples. You have multiples.
We do.
I have 1 million.
You have so many, and they're all amazing.
They try to be. They're all goofy in their own right. But I have a lot of pets in my home. Chris and I both grew up with a lot of pets. Like, I had 7 or 8 growing up. Her mom always had little something dogs and yippers and yappers. But what we grew up in was kind, loving pet owners who they just really got to the point where they didn't smell the pee anymore. And so we both vowed, no matter how many animals we have, if you smell it, then we got to do something about it.
Sure.
Because we did both grow up in that environment of could have done a better job of being pet owners.
Sure.
So if you come to our house, like, God help you if you smell it. And that's,
Yeah, I did not when I was at your house.
Yeah.
Did not at all.
And so we do that at work too. Like one of the nicest things people say is this place is so clean and it smells so good. Right on.
That's good.
Because, you know, we have 50 animals in there.
Right. Love it. All right, so one of the things that we are really big on here at Heart of Glass is we do like to talk about people's mental health journeys.
Yay!
Yeah, so we're gonna, first of all, I wanna thank you because, you know, obviously everyone's mental health journey is their own and very personal, but when someone is willing to be vulnerable and share about it,
I'll do my best.
I appreciate that.
Honestly, if it wasn't you, dude, you know, I trust you, so
Thank you.
Don't make me regret it.
I'm gonna do my best to not make you regret it. So I have a unique view on. So you have bipolar.
Yep.
I have not necessarily a unique view, but my very specific view of bipolar and other disorders like that is when I hear. I mean, our videographer could tell you when they disclose some stuff about their mental health history. I lit up because I'm a firm believer that while I know that it obviously causes the individual a lot of struggles, it's a part of who you are and it's a part of what's helped make you the unique, diverse individual that you are today. So you sharing that just honestly made me love you even more. Truly.
Okay, next topic.
I love you. I love you so much.
Let's stop that.
Yeah, so
It's been a freaking struggle. Like I was misdiagnosed for a long time.
Okay.
And then I finally got to a guy, and he's like, he said something that was so profound, but so simple. He's like, I'm the best person to help you right now because I have all of the information up to this minute. Something along those lines. But basically he's like, all right, we're going to figure this shit out together. And he was pretty spot on. It was years of, you know, depression, anxiety, wrong medications, you know, ones that cause migraines, the ones that cause sleeplessness, ones that make me curl up in a corner in the fetal position, shaking and crying and acting like a total lunatic. So yeah, I am.
Was that really hard for you, knowing and being able to pinpoint within yourself that something did not feel quite right and making that effort to really try and get a handle on it, but kind of coming up short initially?
It wasn't my efforts. It was Krista's efforts.
How
to try
so?
to figure, because she was there. Like I couldn't, right in the middle of going stir crazy, like thinking you're absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And then you come out of it. You can't go like to your doctor a week and a half later and he's like, well, describe it. I'm like, yeah, I kind of got mad. Like, you can't describe that. Where she's like, really what was the most pivotal part was she called him while I was in the garage freaking the fuck out.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know what's going on. Like, she was able almost in real time to describe what was going on. I can't even describe what was going on. She can, I'm sure.
Sure.
So when she signs up to do the interview, she can tell you about it. But misdiagnosed for a long time. I really, honestly, I wish I had known in my teens, because I mean, it's not like it's something I grew into. It's like, oh, I got 30. I'm like, oh, I guess you're 30 years old. You better have a mental health diagnosis.
Right.
I was, it's like bipolar for forever.
Yeah.
And I wish I'd known a long time ago. One, I probably wouldn't drank nearly as much.
Sure.
And two, I would have been less of an asshole for a long time.
See, the drinking aspect makes a lot of sense to me because I think when you have something that when it's not checked with a variety of therapies and whatever you need to do,
right.
The feelings become so intolerable that you have to do something to dampen them down. So you struggling with alcohol is, to me, that kind of is par for the course, because when you don't know what's going on, so you don't know how to tackle it and how to help yourself, you have to do something to make those feelings not as loud and as hurtful.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better myself. So yeah, I ended up finally getting on the correct medication and was pretty religious about taking it. And then probably once or twice, I was like, oh, I'm better. I don't need to take this. And then Krista, about 3 or 4 months later, is like, you taking your medication? I'm like, kind of occasionally. And then this last time, she's like, if you don't take it, you're out. Like, get the fuck out of this house if you can't take, because I wasn't the right person.
Sure.
So every morning before I get my coffee,
okay,
down the hatch.
So Krista sounds like the ideal type of partner for someone who does struggle with mental health, because she's compassionate, but also when she knows you're not taking care of yourself the way that you need to, she's going to be compassionate, but it sounds like she also will call you on it as well.
Yeah, her compassion has limits.
Fair enough.
Yeah, she doesn't need it. There's too many other shit, going
Sure.
on that she doesn't even have to worry about me. She's got 2 kids she's got to worry about who have their own mental health issues that they're dealing
Sure.
with. So yeah.
Let me ask you this. I know for a lot of people, they're kind of split on how they view that part of themselves. Are you able to view that as a part of yourself that just generally makes you a more vibrant and unique person, obviously with some stumbling blocks, or do you just view that as a disadvantage?
No, neither. I try
Somewhere
not
in the
to
middle?
view it at all.
Okay,
like it's just
that's fair.
Like it's just what it is, and I got to take
Yeah.
these medications so I can be better.
Sure.
And I get pissed off when someone's like, "Oh, you're being so bipolar," and I'm like, let's have a little TED talk
Right.
about what you're saying is bipolar. People think bipolar is like, like Schoolhouse Rock. Oh, when you're happy, hooray, or sad,
right.
oh. Like, no, man, that's not what it is.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
mine wasn't like that. Mine was, normal. I'm an asshole. Rah, I'm gonna punch holes in walls.
Sure.
Which I did. My knuckles can tell you. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
that's what people think it is. Like you go from being like everyone's like the Joker.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's different for everyone. And there's different, levels or types of bipolarism, and I don't remember what they are.
That's okay.
I don't have the one flew over the cuckoo's nest stereotypical diagnosis with bipolar.
Sure.
I have just get some medication and be not, recognize, when you're being a jerk. Like I got pissed off at something yesterday. Something dumb.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I'm really angry. I'm going to go back into the garden and water. And I came back in. I'm like, I'm not so angry anymore.
That's good.
But but it was stupid. And I get like that all the time. And I definitely see that, like, get it from my dad.
I understand it. Emotion regulation is tough.
Dude gets his twig snapped.
Yeah.
In a matter of minutes, and I'm like, there's really nothing. You don't need to be like that.
I get that. Well, once again, I love you. I think you're an incredible person, and I love that you recognize that this is just a thing that you deal with, and that you have to handle it accordingly, and that you're not letting it dampen any part of who you are.
No, sometimes I'm successful.
Right?
As I have a call into a therapist to say, hey, I could really work on some things right now. It's like I always think of Pete Davidson when he was talking about Kanye. In his thing, he's like, Kanye's like, this is the real me. He's like, no, go back on the meds, man. Like, meds are fine.
That's okay that's who you are, but meds are not a bad thing.
He's
right.
like, his thing is like, you don't want your pilot not to be on the meds going, this is the real me flying this plane. And I thought that was super funny that he said that. You don't want people around you who like, I don't know. I've definitely seen it. Meds as a crutch, and as an excuse.
Really?
And oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not bulletproof anymore.
Right.
I used to be bulletproof. I was bulletproof for quite some time.
I think there's something beautiful though to be said of recognizing your own vulnerability and the fact that you're not bulletproof, and being willing to say, hey.
You're far more thoughtful about all these things than me. I honestly, I'm like the stone skipping across the lake.
I get you.
I don't drop the boulder in and let it sink to the bottom. I just like and try not to think about it.
I understand.
Until I run out of steam and like I have to.
That's
a great analogy, by the way.
It really is. It really is. I'm a naturally introspective and inquisitive person, and I have my own struggles with mental health, and I'm the type of person that I want to understand the why, which is probably to my own discredit at some points, but I also feel like it's made me a pretty compassionate and empathetic person when viewing other people's mental illnesses through my own lens. I have a lot of compassion because I know what my struggles are with it, and I know that for whatever I deal with, that people still view me as a pretty okay person, and I love being
more than pretty okay.
Well, thank you. I love being able to extend that to other people as well.
I think very creative people have the empathy and compassion that you do, and can be able to see that stuff, and also just a little bit on the shitty crazy side. And I mean, I can name 10 people I know who are super creative, and some of them I'm like, yeah, they got their struggles.
Yeah.
And it's, it goes back to history. I mean, hopefully none of those people are going to cut their ear off.
Right.
And mail it to their lover. Don't do that.
Right.
But creative people have some mental struggles, and I think it's because your brain is just going above and beyond. Krista's that way. She's so wicked creative all the time.
It's kind of like your brain being on fire.
She cannot stop her brain.
Yep, I understand that. Well, I love you, and I love that you were willing to share that. So thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for being vulnerable about that.
I was semi-vulnerable.
Well, I appreciate it. So you said that the trifecta of importance for you and your family is music, plants, and pets.
Yes.
So how have these three things helped to bond the four of you? And I will say that after visiting your house, you can see it.
There should be 4.
Okay, go ahead. What's the fourth?
Because my love language is food.
That's an important one too. Absolutely.
That is where I express myself, and where like you're gonna hit me.
Okay.
All right. So food is probably the first one, but obviously the rest. And I grew up with plants, pets, food. I learned learned how to cook from both of my parents. My mom was like the family meal, lasagna and meatloaf and all that stuff, but like could throw a spread for a party. And my dad was more the hoity-toity, like, let's do the panko crusted sea bass with the wilted, broccoli rabe and all that stuff. So food, but I also grew up with tons of pets in my house. My mom, plants galore.
Nice.
Loved plants, and I never learned anything. I don't know anything about plants.
But you appreciate them. You can tell you're an appreciator.
I love plants. We have like 100 and some odd in our small little house.
Wow.
It
feels good though when you walk into your house with all the plants.
And I have a really good sized vegetable garden that is my little safe sanctuary at home. I have 2 sanctuaries at home. We'll talk about the other one maybe later. And Krista, here's a good story. When Krista and I lived in the old West End when we first lived here, down in the basement of our apartment was this sad little deadish palm tree. It was like the leaves are dead, and it was just a stalk like this. And Krista couldn't keep a plastic plant alive.
Really?
So her first plant was this palm that she brought back. And it grew, and then like one of our cats fell on it and busted the top off, and then like a little sprout came off the side, and then I took it to work. Oh, because one of our cats was peeing it. So I took it to work, and then I put it outside at work, and then I left it there, and it got frozen, and then the squirrels ate it, and I brought it back inside, and it grew again.
Wow.
And this was, we've had this thing for like 22 years. We still have it.
Wow.
It's awesome. It's like, yay big.
So it sounds like those things are a pretty pivotal thing for you guys.
For her.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I grew up with plants. She grew up with some plants, but not like that. And most of the plants.
That's awesome.
They're hers. I just move the big ones around and water them when she wants me to. But she's gotten our kids into plants.
Nice.
So they have all their own and things like that. Yeah, it's important. Think about it. It's oxygen and it's life, and so yeah.
I noticed when I visited you guys the one time that I did that your house is a very happy place to be. You can just tell that overall there's a lot of really good energy that runs throughout it. And I don't know if that specifically speaks to the fact that those things that we mentioned are so important, but you can just tell in general your house is a very light-filled place to be in.
Yeah. Lots of art.
Yeah.
Lots of art from people we know. Obviously the plants and pets and food, and we've always wanted a place where people can just come in and feel welcome. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
And with Krista's work at Owens, we've gotten a lot of like chosen kids, and some of the students that she works with, and the misfits and things like that. And a lot of them over time have felt just comfortable coming to our place.
That's great.
And so, yeah, I mean, and we're homebodies. You know, we like vacations, but like 3 days. You know, like 3 days is plenty. So we like being home. We always have some sort of project going on, unfortunately, because that's home ownership. But we enjoy being home. Last night, and I'm worse at it. I like being home, but like I like being home with my ass time and looking at
Right.
Last night, Krista's like, come outside. I'm like, come outside. It's like 10 o'clock. The lightning bugs were stupid. They weren't just like ground level. They were way up in the trees and in our way backyard. It was amazing. It was really super cool. But then
That's
I was getting eaten
awesome.
by mosquitoes, so I had to go in. But it was really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, well, to wrap this thing up, can you...
Has this been an hour?
I know, it's crazy,
Get out of
right?
Dodge.
That's been the general consensus, is our guests have been very shocked when we got to the end of our time.
I didn't even get to talk about disc golf.
Well, that I know,
That's
but
okay.
you also gave me your disclaimer that would be like the guaranteed way to get people to be like, I'm done listening to this.
It's true.
So to close
Let me
this
talk
thing
about
out,
plastic.
exactly. Can you tell me what one of your favorite things is about being a part of the Glass City community?
When I first moved here, I hated it.
Really?
I mean, I lived in mountains. I lived at the ocean. I lived, in all these cool places.
Sure.
And I ended up taking a naturalist class
Okay.
and learned about the Oak Openings region and how diverse the Oak Openings region was in terms of, flora and fauna and all that stuff. And then I realized like the zoo is amazing and the museum is amazing. So like our city has some really cool stuff.
Definitely.
I don't know. It's a big town, but it's a small town. You and I know a ton of the same people, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think if you're around the same type of creative people, inevitably their paths cross, and people know each other, and so that part I really like the art community, the artisan community, the food community. Like people know each other and genuinely get along. I don't know. I drove down Toledo for the first time. Drove Summit Street. So I took Western from work, all the way down, and I was like, it's a nice day. There's people in the park. Like,
Yeah.
Toledo's trying to do stuff, and so I appreciate that. You can get anywhere from here. I don't know. It's an easy place to live. We've thought of leaving lots of times, and our kids are like, no, this is home, so it's home.
That's awesome.
So I don't know. There's not one specific thing that I can pinpoint. There's just, if you're into doing stuff, which I'm typically not, you can go and do stuff constantly, every day.
That's true.
There's a festival. There's a food truck rally. There's someone playing music somewhere. Usually not close, and usually at like 10 o'clock at night. So not like cater to the older people, man. 6 o'clock, let's go.
I mean, after COVID, it's definitely gotten earlier with the time slots.
But you can always catch live music. You can always eat somewhere good.
It's true.
You can eat somewhere bad a lot of places, but there's always something to do. And so it's a, someone said earlier on, like, it's a great place to live, but I wouldn't want to visit there. I think it's changed a lot since then.
I agree with that.
And I've seen a lot in the 20 some odd years I've been here. I've seen a lot of positive change. I've seen some obviously negative things, a little sprawl and a little bit of too much. But there's a lot to have. It's a good town.
It really
is. And it's relatively inexpensive to live compared to even other places in the city or in the state.
That's true. Well, Steve, thank you so much for doing this.
Are you kidding? This was fun.
I love
I want
you.
to do it again.
It's highly likely that will happen because we have other things to talk about.
Oh, geez.
If you will, look right at this camera. Tell people where they can find you on social media and the rescue if you would like. And then if you have anything that you would like to promote as far as events coming up for the rescue, the floor is yours.
When's this airing?
This is going to air late July. Does that sound right?
Geez, I don't know what's happening then.
Fair enough. That's okay.
You can only find me on Facebook because I don't do any other stuff. But you can find Toledo Animal Rescue on Facebook, on Instagram. We kind of try to TikTok every once in a while. ToledoAnimalRescue.org for your next furry family member, or if you just want to give us a call and come and visit.
Awesome. Well, to all of you who are listening and watching, thank you so much for tuning in with us once again. If you're not already following us on social media, you can find us on both Facebook and Instagram at Heart of Glass the Pod. In order to watch this episode when it comes out and all their episodes, you can find us on YouTube. And if you aren't already, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you once again for tuning in with us. Stick around for a preview of next week's episode at the end of this. We just want to thank you again for tuning in to learn a little bit more about another human who makes up the heartbeat of the Glass City. Thank you, and we'll see you again soon.
But there was also an appreciation for, Dana Carvey and Mike Myers, specifically with like Wayne's World, which I feel like is like the epitome of like the early 90s. If you want someone to know about the 90s,
Oh,
like,
very
watch
much
Wayne's
so.
World.
Yeah.
I still work that in with people with whom I work, like that are younger. And then we're like, what's that from? Like Wayne's World. So I got other people to love that. But like Phil Hartman, you mentioned him. I'm glad you did because I feel like he doesn't get enough credit.
He does not get enough credit, and I think he's incredible.
He's just so amazing. I think of like Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer. He's like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm just a caveman. Your world frightens and confuses me. And so like my dad and my uncles like really loved that, and I would see them laughing and I would enjoy it. And then you just pick up on that voice. And I don't know when it was when I discovered I could do things like that and like talk and like do voiceover like it's a commercial. So like him, he's still someone that I kind of like look up to, as he would do the perfect mock commercials on SNL, which they're known for. But if you remember the ones from like that era, they looked like a real commercial.
They did look like a real commercial.
They still do a great job, don't get me wrong.